Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. As you can tell, it's getting colder. Got the old heavy-duty dressing gown out. I haven't had this on for many months, but anybody would think it was November. Soon be Christmas. Anyway, I wanted to talk a bit about Hearn and Matchroom and the way in which they're handling their fighters, because Hearn got a lot of comments, a lot of feedback when he said that Matchroom fighters have now got to step up to the plate. There's going to be no gimmies. We don't mind if our fighters, have a tough time. We're not going to give them any little runarounds. They've got to face real opposition. And if some of them lose, they lose. That's too bad, You've got to earn your place in the Matchroom roster. And a lot of people, myself included, sort of applauded that idea, because we're sick of seeing, mismatches and so on. But there is a flip side to this. And I think that flip side was very well illustrated during the Next Gen show at the weekend, because it is possible that you throw your fighters in at the deep end too quickly, when they're not prepared, when they haven't got enough experience, and it becomes not a case of fighter A being exposed because of a lack of talent, but because they simply weren't ready for the challenge set before them, which, it's called setting someone up to fail. Now, I think you've got to be careful here. The art is getting the balance right between having your fighters taking incremental leaps. I'm not saying putting them in with anyone easy. You put them in with someone who's going to test them. There's a difference between that and between just throwing them in at the deep end. If you throw someone in at the deep end, they'll drown if you haven't taught them how to swim first. So you've got to teach them how to swim. Then you throw them in at the deep end and we'll see how they get on. Okay? And I think two examples of this were very evident during the Next Gen show, which was it over in Newcastle, wasn't it, at the weekend? The first one was between Callum French, who came in with a 4-0 record, all against journeymen with huge losing records. And after only 4 fights, he was put in there with Jeff Ofori. Now, Ofori had 5 defeats on his record, 2 by stoppage. But the people he had fought were all prospects with bigger records than Callum French's. And also, I think of the 5 defeats, 4 were against undefeated prospects. Archie Sharp was one of the guys who was undefeated, and a lot of people thought Ofori won that match. I can't remember it offhand, but I do remember Jeff against O'Hara Davies. Davies had 2 defeats on his record at the time, but they were to Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. And Ofori was slung in there. This was a few years ago, and Davies stopped him. Now, Ofori, nevertheless, is the type of guy. I mean, he's in his 30s already, but he's a tough little sod. And he was clearly looking for a chance to really break out. It's like, okay, I've had all this experience, and when I've stepped up, I haven't won, but I've been the distance a few times with some very good guys. I've got experience under my belt. This guy's got 4 fights against, losing record journeyman. I can win this fight. And from the word go, I mean, it did kind of look... Well, actually, I say that from the word go. For the first 2 rounds, I actually thought French won those first 2 rounds, because he was looking like, a very slick, good counter-puncher, avoided Jeff's onslaughts, his come-forward style. Jeff was putting pressure on him. But then in the 3rd round, Jeff started to catch him up and kind of dragged Callum into a dogfight, into an up-close and personal dogfight. And Callum had no answer. He just seemed to come apart at the seams, mentally as well as physically. And Jeff ran out. It was an 8-rounder. Jeff ran out a winner, an 8th round stoppage. The towel came in. And Jeff I had him, ahead at that point. I thought he won. Of the 7 completed rounds, I gave him 5. So it was a big step back from Callum French. Now, he's got good people with him, I assume. Yes, he lost, but unless you want to completely wreck his career, you're not going to just discard him. That would be really quite well, it would be quite disgraceful, I think, for Hearn and Matchroom to just say, okay, Callum, you lost, go away. No, it's possible he can take that fight as an experience, he's still a young man, and come back. Is he going to be a world champion? I've seen nothing to suggest it, but certainly you do get fighters like Lee Wood is an obvious example, who, flourish later on and have an Indian summer, in their career. I mean, look at Natasha Jonas. Look at the amount of belts she's won in the last 18 months, 2 years, and she's 39 now. So I would expect Matchroom to do what Frank Warren is very good at doing, and Queensberry, which is if a fighter is defeated, you turn the negative into a positive and you say, okay, where did you go wrong? How did you feel in there? Because it's a psychological, thing as well as physical. Did you panic? Why did you panic? What was missing? What made you panic? Okay, we've identified those things. Now let's work on them. Okay, you allowed Jeff Ofori to do this, this, and this. Why weren't you able to nullify that? Why weren't you able to counter that? All of these things are stuff that French and his team need to go into. The last thing they will need, unless you want to wreck the guy's career, is for Hearn and Matchroom to say, you're finished, you lost, get out. No, because they've set him up to fail. Okay. Now the other fight that was on was Shabazz Massoud against Jose San Martin. And this was a case of Massoud, trained by Ben Davison. I think he's 12-0 going in? And he was in against San Martin, who himself had, I want to say 7 defeats, and a couple of stoppages on there. But there's no doubt that Jose San Martin is a tough operator. Win or lose, he will give you a night's work. And he showed this against Maurizio Lara. He actually put the pressure on Lara. He was going forwards, not backwards. Never mind Lara's power. I don't care about that. And in the third round of their fight, he actually landed some body punches that really perturbed Lara. And it was only because he kept going forward and Lara was able to catch him and sting him and then finally knocked him flat. I mean, it was a brilliant fight. Go and see it. It's only 3 rounds. But it's a brilliant fight. The kind of power got Lara out of jail, as it so often does. But Jose San Martin showed a lot in that fight, a lot of determination, grit, good pressure, consistent pressure, a great engine. Throughout his career he's done this. And yes, he's lost fights. So he goes in with this young kid, Shabazz Massoud, who, let's face some half-decent fighters, and he gives him a tough night's work, a real tough night's work. I had that fight 95-95, 5 rounds each. It was a 10-rounder. Some people thought Massoud lost, and I can understand that. I think it could have gone either way, a point or two either way. I wouldn't have quibbled if San Martin had got the decision. And in fact, it wouldn't have been a tragedy if he got the decision. Because again, Massoud, having lost his unbeaten record, he'd have to go away, lick his wounds and say, what did I do wrong? What didn't I do? What should I have done? What didn't I do enough of? What did I do too much of? All of these things. But instead, after the fight, even though he's escaped with a win, whether you think he deserved it or not, Ben Davis and Eddie Hearn are really putting it on the kid. And to be fair to Massoud, he was saying, yeah, I was rubbish in there. I didn't follow the game plan and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Massoud is towing the party line. He's agreeing with his trainer and his promoter. But I get the impression he's been fast-tracked too quickly. So again, it's a case of, look, where is the balance between putting a young fighter in with someone who's going to give them rounds, with someone who they can actually show off their skills to, what they've been working on in the gym? Where's the difference between that? Where's the line between that and rushing them too quickly, which of course can wreck a career? Now again, I get back to Frank Warren and Queensberry, because although I think they made a bit of a pig's ear of someone like Daniel Dubois' career, nevertheless, Frank Warren traditionally, and he's been in the game for 40 or 50 years, whatever it is, I mean, going back to the unlicensed circuit and, he usually goes down the traditional route. So that would be, area, Nowadays it's English, British, Commonwealth, European, and then you jump over to see if you're good enough to be a world title fighter. Challenge for world honours. And you know, and I mean, another example of where he hasn't done that would be Anthony Yarde. That was, I think his career has been very strange as well. But mostly Warren does that. He did it with Billy Joe Saunders as a perfect example. Navigated Billy Joe into a world WBO world title, but he went down the traditional route: British, Commonwealth, European, you know, whatever, and a few of those alphabet soup trinkets as well. That's the best way to do it. I don't like the fact that the undefeated record is supposed to be sacrosanct now. You can't lose, you know, even though you learn, that's how you sometimes learn from losses. That's how we all learn in life, from making a bit of a tit of ourselves and, you know, losing sometimes and embarrassing ourselves. And, you know, it's like a little baby taking its first steps, falls on its bum and falls on its face, starts grizzling. Mum and dad picks it up. Don't worry, off you go. And you know, it learns. That's how you learn. So all this fast tracking people, like, you know, they're all Lomachenko or Usyk or someone, I think is probably a mistake. I think Hearn and Frank Smith and the others need to get together a sensible strategy for some fighters, and don't risk, you know, setting them up to fail. Don't risk putting them in with fighters who are just going to smash them up and they're never going to be the same again because they're left with so many psychological scars. Don't do that. That's no good. So what do you think? How do you feel about this? Where is the line? Because I'm not certain myself. Explain to me where the line is, that line between too much, too soon, too much, too young, too much, too soon, and sensible fast tracking. Tell me what you think. Comments below as usual. Like the video if you liked it, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't hit the subscribe button. It takes a second, and it, you know, massive thanks to you for doing that. And I'll catch you later. I'll read your comments and answer them. I'm looking forward to them. And meanwhile, take care of yourselves and bye for now.